And we start off from the economy. And the Finance Minister said Tekpe has mounted a strong defense of government strategy to manage Ghana's rising debt stock.
Most state-owned enterprises are now required to borrow their own strength without necessarily burdening government. President John Dramani Mahama recently became a target of sharp criticism for claiming that Ghana is not highly indebted because of the effectiveness of the new debt management strategy. Mr. Tekpe has been speaking with Evans Mensah.
You can borrow for schools, primary schools, secondary schools, or even universities, public universities. You can borrow for public universities. These are what you call social infrastructure projects. You can borrow for two types of roads. The first one is rural roads, which opens up the rural communities. We call this social infrastructure. Typically, these are the ones which you have to put on government balance sheet. Borrow preferably over a very long period and pay over a period of time. There is another class, which are commercial projects. An airport is a commercial, project. A harbor is commercial. Toll roads are deemed commercial. The thermal plants, the gas processing plants, Bui Dam, Akosomo Dam, these are commercial projects. And in governance, what you do is that you establish enterprises. And the word enterprise is important. That's why you have state-owned enterprises. And they are commercial vehicles for government to do these commercial projects. And because if the private sector had done some of these projects, for example, there will be profit-making projects. When these enterprises are established, they are expected to fund these projects from the equity that government provides and from borrowing to complete these projects and repay the loan from the proceeds of the projects. So what Ports and Harbors Authority is doing, which we are encouraging them, is that they are using stiff drawing and other charges which come in. Instead of everything coming into government coffers, they are allowed to retain and they pay government a dividend after they have covered this cost. When the revenues flow, they are supposed to pay, for the project from this process. And that is why it is only state-owned enterprises, and emphasis is on enterprises, that are the only government organ that make profits.
Will district assemblies qualify under that criteria?
Finish my thought and come to this assembly. It's a very interesting, yes, I'll come to that. Yes, Kumasi is a good example. So, but to finish the state-owned enterprises, so government ceded, for example, the airport tax as a revenue, direct revenue to government, to airport company. That is part of the process for. Now, when the terminals are completed, obviously there will be floor space, there will be other renters, there will be businesses. If you've been to big airports, there will be restaurants, there will be all kinds of businesses that are going on there, and the airport company will use the proceeds from this to develop the airport, not just Kotoka, but then take part of the revenue to develop Kumasi, take part of the revenue to borrow. But the key thing is that once it shows that it can borrow and pay from the project, the banks don't require a government to guarantee that loan.
But government is still guaranteeing some of these loans, it's not?
Government is guaranteeing some of these loans. And let me use two examples, electricity company and Ghana Water as examples. Used to borrow on their own balance sheet when they were established. And that is when the tariff was sufficient to cover their cost of operation and to enable them make profit. We came to a point where instead of even calling them corporations, we call them companies, just like the private sector. What happened with these institutions, these two institutions in particular, is that in the case of electricity, at a time when electricity costs were high, and also at the time when crude oil prices and these were very high, it was very difficult to pass on all the costs to the consumer.
Vice President Papa Kwesi Miss Arthur has launched a project to compile a database of the most needy and vulnerable households in the country.
The database will be used to provide social intervention programs for these households.
The Ghana National Household Registry is expected to facilitate better targeting of social protection programs in the country. The Household Registry project aims at providing a single database of the poorest and most vulnerable households in Ghana. Vice President Mr. Arthur is confident that the database will prevent duplication of social protection intervention programs and ensure those in dire need of government supports are reached.
Today we begin the process of removing this particular impediment to poverty reduction from our country. The launch of the Ghana National Household Registry will improve the targeting of interventions and contribute to eliminate the pockets of poverty that exist in the country. The Ghana National Household Registry therefore aims to improve the efficiency of social protection programs in Ghana with three distinct advantages. First, a targeting process that is inclusive, transparent, and fair. Secondly, to lead to the reduction of the duplication of various social protection programs, especially in the selection of beneficiaries. And thirdly, improving coordination among the various programs. The achievement of these three objectives would contribute to transforming the social protection terrain in the country and improve lives of the poor and vulnerable in Ghana. The government commits itself to continue to identify efficient ways of delivering these programs.
Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Nana Oyelitha, said once completed, the database will be available for all government agencies to aid implementation of their social protection programs.
The registry, the household, they're going to go around the whole of Ghana and they're going to register all of them. So when we want people to benefit from LEAP, we have the lists. We go to Kumburungu, Zabzugu, we have the lists. We know where they live. We know how many people are in the household. We know how many orphans there are, how many persons with disability. We have one person with disability benefiting from the 2% common fund, benefiting from LEAP, and several others. Meanwhile, the next person with disability in the same district is not benefiting, perhaps because he doesn't know anybody. This registry and register will cure that defect, because once the questionnaire is administered and you score, you will benefit from all social protection interventions. And this will make sure that the money government is putting into reducing poverty actually has an impact on reducing poverty. It is binding on all ministries. It has cabinet approval and is also within the social protection policy. We are also drafting a law for social protection and is also part of that law.
A stakeholder consultation program has already started in the Upper West region. The second phase of the project, comprising the other regions, will end in the last quarter of 2017. Matilda Pomaga for Joy News.
A woman was saved from sudden death in Accra on Tuesday by the sheer heroics of 5 young men in the suburb of the capital, Osu.
The woman was driving in the rain when her car was turned over by surging flood waters, which pushed the car towards an open storm drain. That was when the young man came to her rescue. Francisca Kakra-Forson witnessed this.
This morning, after the rains, we were on Facebook when we saw pictures posted by Sarah Safoije, a citizen, a true citizen of Ghana, about flooding, and somebody almost lost her life as well as her car. We are in Osu, Kalamazo, where it happened. We are in the house of Sarah to talk to her, for her to tell us what happened and also get an understanding why this area floods whenever there are rains.
Well, this morning, as soon as it started raining, we were just closing our windows, and my nephew started screaming, "It's taking a car, it's taking a car." So we looked out the window and we could see a car being swept away, quite a small car. So we rushed up here to see, and we could see that now the car was almost totally submerged. So we ran down, we could see people in the area running to help, and what saved her was a group of young men, I think about 5 or 6 of them, formed what I would term a human dam, and they sort of blocked the car and pushed it, lodged it on the side, so the back was slightly elevated, and then they opened the door. I didn't. So by that time, we had run down to see if we could go and help. By the time we got there, she had been pulled out of the car. She was devastated. She was wet head to toe. She was in tears and shaking.
And downstairs, we have another gentleman who did not only witness but also help pull the lady out of the car, and drove the car out of the flood waters. We're going to go down and speak to him. I'm exactly where a young lady almost lost her life this morning. Floodwaters almost washed away her car while she drove, and she drove from this side towards that direction. And when she got here, she was met by the waters, and Bannerman is here to tell me exactly what happened.
The rain caused flooding. The water rose to knee level. I saw a woman drive along this road. She got stuck and the water forced her car to turn over. She started screaming for help. My colleagues and I went over to block the car so it wouldn't be washed into the storm drain.
My understanding, I'm not an engineer, was that it's due to poorly constructed drains, because you could see their drains, but they're full. And sometimes when they meet, they seem to be different levels, and the water is swirling, and it's it's like waves you see. And trust me, if any child were to fall into that, they would drown immediately. And it happens every time it rains.
And what's the assembly doing about that? Do they even know the problem?
Oh, everyone here has complained. I mean, some residents have taken it upon themselves to force gutters to be deeper in front of their houses. We used to have flooding, but thankfully that's not the case anymore. There are also some newly constructed curbs, pavement curbs, and there doesn't seem to be drainage at the side, so the water now is just deep. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare driving through anywhere in this area when it's raining.
Well, good there. And she really was very lucky.
Yeah, I was in Osu yesterday.
Oh,
I
you
was
were?
scared myself. The gutters, and I was towards the cemetery area. The water was coming from up there. You can't be sure exactly where. What is resulting in this?
I think that's because of the placement of the houses in terms of the non-planned nature of the household. We've realistically blocked many of the waterways. And so you're seeing that each time it rains, within some few minutes, or just less than 2 hours, the water is seeping through areas they're not supposed to be seeping through. And low-lying areas are becoming very much vulnerable. We need re-engineering of drains and things in Accra.
Because who would think that Osu is not a properly planned community? Osu is supposed to be, you know, like the
Because you go to places like Brazil and things, it doesn't flood often, even though they are living in low-lying areas. It's because those places have been re-engineered well. Well, we'll have to take you to the Volta region, though.
Because residents of the town of Duta are literally living under a cloud of cement.
Films of cement dust could be seen in almost every corner of the town, polluting the environment and also contaminating food supplies. Join you, Seth Kwame Boateng, the GJ Journalist of the Year, visited the town and produced a documentary on the extent of pollution in the community. Here's an excerpt.
I have traveled all the way from Accra to the Volta region, specifically Duta Agbayome. It's not far from Aplao here in the Volta region, but very close to Togo. I'm told it's about 3 minutes drive from this town to Togo. Here we have the Diamond Cement Factory. Now, as I'm talking, I can feel the cement in my mouth. But people here have lived here for years, and they have been inhaling this pollution or this dust from Diamond Cement. They have all forms of sicknesses because of that. Their farms have been affected. They can't grow plants and crops again. Their children are ill. The oldest are also ill. I'm here to speak to them about how this is affecting them and what they are doing to protect themselves. I moved to one of the nearest homes around the cement factory, and there I meet Madam Agbogbe Ahiable and her family. She is a mother of 7 and Miss Gary. From a distance, Madam Agbogbe looks very healthy, but the reality, according to her, is that she is sick.
We used to have such bountiful harvest, but all that changed when the cement factory was established. Now our crops don't grow well. Nothing seems to work. We are constantly ill. We can no longer stretch out or lie on the floor. There's cement dust everywhere, in our food, in our soups. I've not been well myself. I have frequent chest pains and headache with bouts of coughing.
Working around fire is not good for her health, but Madam Agbugbe says she has no choice. She strives to make profit so she could use it to take care of her health. But that rarely happens, so her children are compelled to always foot her medical bills. Madam Agbugbe says before the establishment of Diamond Cement, she had none of the diseases she's battling with now.
I'd never had any of these ailments until the factory came, and I'm sure the cement dust is the reason most of us are falling sick in this community. The doctor even alluded to that when I went to the hospital.
Her physician has advised her to relocate from this area because of the cement pollution, but according to her, she has nowhere to go. Madam Agbugbe is in this household with not only her children, but her grandchildren, including babies as well. Like the adults, these little ones also breathe in the cement dust in the air. And Madam Agbugbe, their grandmother, is very worried.
Our children haven't been spared either. They used to be so healthy, but all that changed when the factory was set up. Now, they are constantly sick and complaining of one illness or the other. And I know without any shred of doubt that the dust from the factory is the cause.
From the community of Duta. And that's the GJ Journalist of the Year, who also here with us, as always, Seth Kwame Boateng, bringing us that very excerpt. And I'm sure following that very broadcast of the documentary on this very network and a sister network, Joy FM in Accra, the Environmental Protection Agency has already given an assurance it will investigate the matter and stem the pollution in Duta.
Well, we'll be following the story and keep you posted as and when the situation changes. By all means, we keep an eye on the EPA.
Well, we'll see how that goes as far as we're concerned. And that's it for the news for the morning.
We'll come back and tell you what the newspapers are reporting, hopefully, and what some of the websites are also reporting here on our show. Stay with us.